everyone. I hope you're doing really well. First of all, I wanted to thank you for listening in today. It is going to be a very, very special session where we're going to be discussing everything you need to know about selling cross-border. I am Maria Prados, the VP for Global Retail and B2B at WorldPay from FIS. And basically, I'm responsible for our global retail strategy, partner program, and marketing. And today, I am honored to have here with me Neil Koshal. Neil is the CEO of Europe for Globally. He's responsible for all European functions, including business development, operations, account management, and project implementation. Now, prior to this, he had a 20-year career with DHL, working in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So he has some great insights into cross-border commerce that hopefully he's going to be sharing with us today. So hi, Neil. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Maria. How are you? And after that big build-up, you've put the pressure on, but I'm sure we'll be fine.
Of course. Yes, okay. So let's start. We have surveyed at WorldPay 33,000 people across 12 countries, asking them about shopping habits and the influence that the pandemic has had on them. And we have actually found that selling cross-border is one key trend to expand and survive in this new situation we're in. So for example, the global cross-border e-commerce sales are projected to reach 660 billion euros and account for 17% of total online retail sales by 2023. But we also found that more than a half of online shoppers make cross-border purchases already, with fashion and electronics being the most popular categories for these international shoppers. Now, all of these are massive numbers, right? And probably also still growing with the pandemic. So it would be great if, Neil, you could share with us, from your perspective, how have you seen the appetite for shopping cross-border change in recent years?
Well, I think from all the stats, I think a lot of, most people will be aware that the move to cross-border e-commerce has been growing over the past few years. So the stats all point to show that the percentage of people buying cross-border was increasing every year, and that people are more willing to buy cross-border. And I think what's changed now is that in the last sort of 9 months of this pandemic, I think what we've seen is somewhere between the next 1 and 5 years worth of that trend being squashed quickly into 6 to 9 months. People were forced, if they wanted to get stuff, to buy cross-border or to buy online, certainly. And then the more they're looking to buy online, the more they then look to see what's available for them to buy, and then they start to shop around the world. I mean, the internet's it's a great place for people to be able to look and see what it is out there that they want to purchase. And there's so much more variety around the world that people are going, okay, well, I'm going to try buying online. And so I think we've seen, a rapid acceleration of the trend towards online e-commerce in the last sort of 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, right? And the more people shop online, the easier it is to access those international retailers. So it sounds like kind of a no-brainer, right? But there's a lot of different challenges. So what would you say are the biggest ones that a retailer would face when they are selling cross-border?
So, I mean, if you broadly put it into 2 categories, one is how do I convert the traffic that I'm getting from my overseas visitors? And secondly, how do I increase and improve the volume of that traffic so that I'm getting more traffic that converts more highly? And it's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation insofar as, there's no point driving traffic to a site that doesn't provide the user experience that allows the consumer to check out easily. Because otherwise, what you're seeing effectively is paying to drive traffic that then doesn't convert. So what we're seeing is that, Globally works with 450 brands now to help facilitate their cross-border by providing the localization services to make it seamless. And what we're seeing from those brands is that what works best is the ability to, first of all, localize deeply the experience to their customers and their consumers in each country, because Every country is different. You know, a French consumer transacts differently to a German consumer. You know, and the same applies in Australia and New Zealand and Asia, America, Canada. You know, even though countries can be geographically very similar and potentially even trading in the same currency, the way that they transact is different, particularly with things like payment methods. I know we're going to come on to those kind of things. So first of all, it's make the site friendly for global consumers. And then once that's done, then it's about the strategy, about getting the right traffic, get the right strategy, whether that's, you know, social media, SEO, to make sure that you're getting your product and message out there. Because at the end of the day, if you've got a good product, then people all around the world will want it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And there's also kind of very aligned to what we're seeing here at WorldPay. So if we start with the first part that you were talking about, into how do you actually get those shoppers to go and come to your website? What do you think, and what are you saying are those top things that a retailer should be looking at to make sure that that shopper is going to feel comfortable and they're going to go and proceed with the purchase?
Yeah, well, I think the first bit is having some kind of messaging, banner, pop-up, whatever it would be, that when the person hits the site, they can see we ship internationally, you know, and preferably if you can geolocate that and say, look, hey, we can see you're in New Zealand, you know, don't worry, we've got New Zealand dollar, you know, we'll take care of the duties and taxes. Gives, you know, but at the very least, just a big thing that says we ship internationally or something, so that the moment the customer arrives, they feel comfortable. Because I mean, I'm sure, you know, we've all done this, but when you hit a site for the first time and you're a new customer, really the first thing you do is you end up hitting the site, scrolling down to the bottom, trying to find shipping, delivery, customer service, FAQs, whatever it would be, and you spend the first minute on the site just trying to work out if you can buy it, and if you can buy it, how expensive is the shipping going to be, and, you know, am I going to have to get stuck with duties and taxes? And that's not a user experience that a brand wants the consumer, particularly a first-time consumer, to hit straight away. What you want them is to go, oh wow, what a site, look at the product, I want to have a look at it, and you want to get rid of that initial nervousness.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you want to make sure that you're reassuring the shopper that they can actually shop and buy from there, and they would get the product delivered. You would be right up front with how much it's going to cost, so there are no like last minute surprises into actually now you need to pay double to make sure that you get the product where you are. We also on this research that we have done, we were looking at and we were asking shoppers about what would make them actually feel comfortable. And I think, as you're saying, trust came kind of like at the very, very top. And some other things that they were talking about, which again link back to the localizing that you were saying on the previous question, is like language and currency, for example. And around 70% of the international shoppers were like demanding their local language and their local currency. But then also, as we go through the funnel into the conversion at the checkout, we were asking about like payment methods, and very similar, around like 73% of international shoppers wanted to see their preferred payment method in there, right? Like, and as you've said, not everywhere cards are the common way of payments. So it's very important that everyone and all of the retailers have that information to make those decisions. So that's probably kind of triggering me to my next question, which is, from your perspective and what you are seeing globally with your customers, how can merchants localize and optimize their website and the payment options right at the checkout?
Yeah, I'll bring that forward a bit, because I think payment methods are important right at the beginning of the journey as well, rather than just at checkout. Because being able to advertise, we take Ideal in Netherlands, we take Klarna in Sweden, you know, GiroPay, so forth, Multibanco, Portugal, Mr. Cash, WeChat. There's so many of them, and this is the challenge for a retailer, that actually it's not a question of, oh, there are 3 alternative payment methods I need to integrate and I'll do that over the next 6 months. Yeah, there are there are dozens of really important payment methods, and there are 150 in total that we've integrated with that get used. So there's a lot, and actually there's been research done that says that, but by telling the customer you take their local payment methods at the beginning improves the trust that you know what you're doing and that you're going to be able to follow through on your commitments of getting the product to them. So I think getting that up front is and the messaging there is important. Even if it's just the logos of the payment methods that are running along the bottom in a geolocated cookie banner or however that would be. Then I think once you've got to that, then people are on your site because they're excited by your product, and most online purchases are actually quite emotional. There's a part that wants to buy, particularly in coronavirus, when people are cooped up at home and they feel they deserve a treat and they want to buy something. And so what you're trying to do by localizing is take away all the friction points. So actually the consumer is just left with I do want that, and I don't have to worry about the rest of it. So have the right currency. So they see it and they don't have to worry about currency conversions. They don't have to worry about being charged by their credit card for actually making a purchase in a different currency. Make sure that it's rounded and it looks normal, because I guess we've all seen websites where something says $43.26, at which point you go, well, I know there's something about that. Clearly it's not held in the UK, it's somewhere else, or or US, and it makes it difficult. So have the right currencies and have them rounded. And then throughout the journey, just make sure that you're anywhere that you've got a little messaging banner, just keep reiterating, free shipping over a certain threshold, or reduced shipping over a certain threshold. These kind of things help increase your basket value, because people want to get a deal, and if they know that the thing they want to buy is £50 and it's free shipping over £70, then effectively, let's say shipping is normally £10, they're getting £10 off their next order, which they view as a discount. So managing the shipping thresholds in local currency to each market is important, and the shipping threshold probably needs to be different by market depending upon the consumer business there, because what many brands find is actually that cross-border basket values are higher than domestic basket values. People buy more when it's going cross-border because they know that somehow they're probably going to have to pay for the shipping, so they buy more. And that means if you just stick with your home currency free shipping threshold, often that's not relevant for international markets. Then as you get through the journey, let them know whether duties and taxes are going to apply. And if you can, I know maybe we'll cover this in more depth, but maybe incorporate them into the product price, or make it clear they can pay it at checkout, because again, what they want is a guaranteed landed cost. There's nothing worse than ordering something online and the courier's standing at your door going, I've got your address, but unless you're going to give me 15 euros of customs duty, I'm going to take it away again. And you'll probably pay it, and in most cases you do pay it, but will that customer go back to that site again? It spoils the adrenaline rush and the endorphins of opening the present, because you've just had to part with money on the doorstep, and it affects your returning customer rate. And then making sure that when you do want to transact, that it's easy to pay, that whatever is their preferred method, whether it's a mobile wallet, whether it's a localized payment method, whether it's a credit card, whether it's a buy now pay later scheme, you can't guess or force your customer to pay in something. So give them the options that are best in their market. And all you're trying to do through that whole journey is actually make the consumer not even think about these things and just focus on the product. And and that's really what you're trying to do. There's a lot there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess one of the questions that at least most of our retailers ask us is how do you find the happy medium, right? Like, do we go for like the 80-20 rule into we can localize this much and get 80% of the market, or do we actually need to start investing in the long tail? And when does a country become large enough for us to put the extra effort, because as you say, it's not only the integration piece and making sure that they are offering the right payment mix or the right currencies, but it's also all of the operational pieces behind it, right? Like different payment methods behave differently, and they have to know and understand how to deal with anything that comes from it. I think in retail, as you guys see, we have, especially in fashion, very high return rate, right? So some payment methods don't have an automated return system into them. So many retailers are like, well, then I cannot offer it because there's no way I can return the money to them. So we do play around as well with those things, just to make sure that they understand it is not a one way and everyone's going to, all of the payment methods are going to follow those standards. Each payment method works completely different. And in many cases, it's just like a no-brainer. Like you were talking about digital wallets. If you're selling in China, you just have no other way to sell rather than offering a mobile wallet like Alipay and WeChat Pay, right? So, but then within Europe, I mean, the part that I love about Europe is that we call it Europe as a whole, but it actually has, like, the countries have nothing to do with each other, right? And we all have like very deep kind of, I don't know, identities within our countries. I'm Spanish, right? So I feel like very Spanish around everything. So and also our financial systems have like evolved differently in the different countries. Languages are different as well. And so I always kind of give this rule, like if you cut Europe in the middle, you would have like the South more card heavy for now, although everyone's moving way more into like the digital wallet space. But then the North is the one that has more like a bank transfers or like buy now, pay later. So it somehow, it kind of fits in most cases. But I think, as you're saying now, with everyone going more online and on e-commerce, digital wallets seems to be like the big winner across pretty much the whole world. But the buy now, pay later products like Klarna and Afterpay are growing massively. And not only in their own countries where they started, but now getting outside and completely targeting customers that maybe were not used to paying installments before, or with ATVs a bit lower, right? Because in retail, we used to see installments when you were buying furniture or a very high ATV product. But that's not the case anymore. You're seeing fashion, fast fashion, like cheaper fashion being paid in 3 installments, which was something that probably we hadn't seen before. And it seems like the new shopper, with also the current situation that we have, it's getting more and more comfortable, and it's starting to demand the retailers to allow them to pay however it is that they want to. So what do you think that the digital payment methods, and what's the role that they have played in kind of advancing this cross-border?
I think increasingly, I think you've got 2 demographics. You've got the people, you've got an increase of movement towards paying on a mobile device. Now, I think that's sort of slowing a little bit in this coronavirus lockdown time, when people are in front of their computers at home a lot more. But so I think the rate of switch may be slowing a little bit, but I see that as a blip that will then sort of move forward. The more people are buying on their mobile devices, the more important digital wallets are, and to be fair, even on a desktop. And then the second demographic change is the fact that it is now often the younger population that are more into the slice it, dice it type payment methods, because they don't want credit cards. There's quite a lot of stigma about credit cards these days, and a lot of the under 30s that I work with in our business, they don't have credit cards because they don't want them. They don't want to be. They're terrified by the high interest rate things, and so actually it's a switch from where when I was in that age, if I wanted something I couldn't afford, easily, then it was get a credit card, pay it off over time, but then you have to trust yourself to pay it back. Whereas these Klarna type payment methods just force you to pay it in installments, and you can budget it, and you've got a nice app that measures it all, and you don't pay interest in it generally, and it's all good. So as that demographic gets older, and the older demographic, drop off the end in a nice way, then effectively, I think you're going to continue to see that trend.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we were also finding that on the survey we did, apparently 90% of the population across all of the age groups had changed the way they were buying things, obviously, right? More because of the lack of choice rather than the choice in this situation. But pretty sure that is going to stick as well for like the longer term at some point, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I think the trend is here to stay.
Yeah, great. So then, moving to the next question, what role can merchants like social strategy play in developing their cross-border offer? Because we've seen that digital is going across channels and of course face-to-face as well, right? Like mobile wallets are now being, in many cases, the only payment method that is allowed. But then also new channels are coming up, like social, and lockdowns are making people want to connect and still be feeling part of the community. So we're seeing that the usage time on the social media platforms has like doubled. So how do you see that now retailers, or do you think there is now a time for retailers to start transforming social media from more like a marketing or like a rich channel to a proper sales channel?
I think it's already started to move into a sales channel. I think most brands now see it as a way to drive sales. I think it used to be a bit about social networking, influencing, driving people to the site. Now I think it's a full-on sales channel, and I think this is why cross-border and international is so important, because if a brand has got a strong social media following, it's going to be the whole world, because it spreads, the tentacles go out, and and there are no geographical borders to social media. So effectively, that means you're going to get followers all around the world who are interested in what you're doing, and what you're trying to do is then drive them into the site to bring them in to create the brand loyalty. But then if they can't transact, it leaves them deflated. It might not stop them following you, but it will stop them. It will stop them going, okay, well, I love it, but there's no point in me going to the site because it's 30 quid for shipping, so there's no point doing it. Whereas we've just done a really interesting case study with PD Paola, with a combination of Globally and Facebook, and that's worked extremely well. So what's happened is that PD Paola, an amazing Spanish jewelry brand, integrated with Globally for us to do all of their localization, so that their site became fully streamlined and ready for international trade. And then at the same time, they partnered with Facebook in a three-way approach in order to then go to the markets that they'd localized and drive correct traffic. And then at that point, what you're doing is, and the case study is available, but they saw a 9.8 times increase in revenue through a combination of improving the localization that drives up the conversion rate of existing sales, and then building in with Facebook to drive more traffic. So if you did have 100 sites, 100 hits converting at 2, and then 100 those 100 hits become converting at 4, and then 100 hits becomes 400 hits, then suddenly that's when you get the exponential style growth. And I think building then the social media in to go, once you've hooked them into the brand, and then at the brand you then hook them into the social media and get them to follow you, and then the user journey is good, and so the point they then receive it, they're on their social media going, oh good, PD Paola, thank you so much, I received my jewelry in 2 days and I love it, it's brilliant, the user experience was great. Then other people see that, and then they go, oh well, actually I'll buy that, because it all boils down to that, the comment you made earlier about trust in cross-border. And one of the biggest things of that is references from other consumers. People don't naturally trust what a brand says. Just they go, oh well, they say it must be true. They trust it when the brand says it, and they see reviews of other people who go, yep, it's true, I've got it, it was great. And then they go, right, brilliant, I'm in. And that's when the localization and social media strategy and user experience all tie together to get a growing flywheel.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And also, as you were saying, it's so expensive to get new customers to come to your website, right? So if you build them and you get them engaged into the community, then you create more loyal shoppers that are already there. And rather than having to invest more on the acquisition at the top, and feeling part of our community makes people even more loyal. So it's like, actually, because I'm part of this community, I cannot like unfollow this brand anymore because it's part of what I am now, right? Somehow.
Yeah. And I was in a roundtable discussion group yesterday, actually, with other brands and suppliers and people in the e-commerce industry, talking about what is the future now for e-commerce. And I think fairly unanimously, the feeling was e-commerce growth is going to boom over the next however long a period of time you want to choose, short, medium, and long term. However, there are going to be, I think, and with this discussion point yesterday, I think there will be many brands who suffer because it's not going to be an even thing. It's not going to be every single brand now just does better than on their e-commerce than they did before. There are going to be a lot of winners and losers, because what's going to happen is brands that get their combination of localization, user experience, social media right will pull people away from the brands that get it wrong. And so I think there will be, some brands who absolutely fly and take off. And I am sure that 3 years from now, we'll be talking about brands who are huge, who probably are not even trading properly today, because that's the speed at which, e-commerce can really take off. You look at, Gymshark as an example, some brands have gone from nothing in 6 years to 1.5 billion. Right? And on the flip side, I think you will see established brands that have been around for a long time sort of, suffer, stagnate, because they don't get into the growth mindset of international and online quickly enough. I mean, I heard this morning on the news that John Lewis now are going to start, really aggressively going into other sections of business, hitting online hard, because they've seen, that they can't sustain stores anymore in the same way that they used to. And so, I think that's a sign of things to come. So I think for brands that, getting it right is going to be really important.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we only have time for one more question. So it kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but like, honestly, do you think that like selling cross-border is for everyone? And should all of the retailers and the brands be thinking about it right now if they aren't already?
Yeah, if you're selling online and you have a website, you're already global. Anybody from anywhere in the world can hit it. And if they're going to hit it, then even if you're not proactively going after that business, at least let them be able to transact. And maybe I'll bring it back to a question I think you asked earlier that I didn't respond to, which was about the 80-20 rule. What should brands do in that aspect? And I think there are three answers to that. We speak to a lot of brands, and one solution is they say, look, I'm going to do localization myself. And then it is the 80-20, but to be honest, it's probably more like the 60-40 or the 65-35 actually. What happens is, a brand will go, look, let's assume it's a British brand for now. They'll go, USA is big, France and Germany is big, and Australia, let's say. So they go, look, I'm going to spend the next year localizing those 4 markets, which are 60% of my international turnover. And yes, that's one way of going it. But then I think you've also got to think that, as I mentioned earlier, France and Germany, whilst they're both in the euro, they have different VAT rates, they have different shipping, cultural practices, they have different payment methods. So although they're right next to each other, both in Europe and in euros, many British brands are guilty of going, I will treat France and Germany the same. And actually that doesn't work. If I go to the third option, all the way the other end, we have many brands who say to us, right, globally, we want you to all our international. We're going to focus on domestic and do that ourselves. You be our international partner and you help us do all that bit. And and we're going to outsource how you manage that for us for all that international. Probably the bit in the middle then is a bit of both, and this is probably where many brands would want to start their thought process. A lot of brands have already gone some way down the line of localization. So increasingly what's happening is many brands are saying to us, look, actually we're going to do the top 3 markets ourselves. I've got an e-com team. It's not huge, but I've got an e-com team, and we're going to focus on localizing our top 2 or 3 markets. Globally, if you can integrate into our platform to then localize markets number 4 to 175, and then effectively as a brand, I'll look at it, then I've got my top 3 and globally, and that's how I'm going to do it. And then as we grow brand, country number 4, and it becomes big enough, then the brand goes, okay, well, actually country number 4, maybe I'll look at taking that one back and doing that individually. And so I think all that, they're the 3 generic streams that I see. Try to do it yourself, outsource everything, or somewhere in the middle. And as a brand, you've got to think to yourself, which of those 3 are going to get me where I need to get to. And I think, I'm probably a bit biased here, but 2 and 3 seem to be the common sense ways to go. Effectively, make sure you're taking advantage of the big market quickly, because if you're not, your competitors are. And once you've lost those customers to a competitor, the cost of reacquiring them is so expensive. It's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Neil. I think overall we've seen that definitely the cross-border market is massive, and it's going to continue growing as we move to more digital, which it's happening to all of us. But of course, there's a lot of complexities around it, right? Shoppers are very different, countries are very different, and there are not only regulation, payment methods, and different potential costs that everyone needs to be optimizing. So it's probably fair to say that it is very important that all of the brands and the retailers get advice from their partners, which are the experts on their fields, and get as much data, as much insights as possible to make those informed decisions. So once again, thanks, Neil, for sharing all of these great insights. And for everyone, please make sure that you reach out if you wanted to follow up either with Neil or with myself, and we would love to discuss further. And then anyone interested in the full report, we will follow up with an email and a link so you can download our Power Your Payments research and keep coming back for more content as we are building all of this Retail Insights series. So thank you very much and have a lovely day.
Brilliant. Thank you.